Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. I think we're live. I just logged on. I didn't see anyone. I thought, what's going on? It's cocktail night. But there you all are. Hello, Mom in Granby, Connecticut. Hey, Christine, Brockport, New York. Linda's there from Massachusetts, and Linda B is there. Good evening to you, too. Hello, April. Hello, Elaine. There you are. And Crystal. Hello from Nova Scotia. Oh, Teresa's there. Kira's there. Everybody's popping on now. It's going fast. Catherine from Arizona. Hello. Catherine, I loved how your sweater piece came out with the cornucopias. It was so pretty. I'm so glad it worked out as well as it did. Hello, Julie. Hello, Doreen. Happy Friday, everybody. I think we're going to have more poppers as we go. Friday always runs over a little bit because it's Friday. And you know what else it is? Boop, boop, boop. It's cocktail night. So hello, Jay. Even if you are not a cocktail drinker, you can still participate in spirit or have a tea or a coffee or something amazing. Cheers. It's great when it's Friday, isn't it? And, it's so crazy here with the homeschooling and now officially our district starting on Monday, everybody's at home, which I think is, hello, Sharon, which I think is a better thing because it has been very, very tough at home. My kids never went back. Keeping the kids at home when the teachers are, 50 or 70% with the kids who are physically at the school. And, my little one, Joss, is like this, how kids like this, for like half an hour with a question and the teacher doesn't think to look up at the screen for the kids at home. I think it's going to go a lot easier now. And I think it'll be better for everybody, less spread right now with the kids being at home. But at this moment, it's quiet because they are upstairs and they have video games and it's Friday and it's good and it's our time. Hello, Susan and Brandy, Christine, Caprice, you got on. Lily, you're on. Hey, Patrice, there you are, Patrice. I love the patterns you've been putting out. I hope people are buying them like crazy. These beautiful old patterns are finite. They're hard to find. Patrice is selling a lot of them right now, and they are all beautiful. I got a beautiful Christmas one I'm real happy with. Hello, Carol. Happy cocktail night. Cheers, my dears. I know you're not going crazy because I know you think you're a lightweight. We'll have to test that theory sometime at the winery. Woolen Life. Hello. Hey, Chrissy. Eating chocolate chips out of the bag. Well done. Now you're making me feel it. Today, hello, Michelle. Today, I went out to see Naomi of Ravensgate Primitives because she had a beautiful bolt of glitter wool, door wool, that I want to use for a dyeing class that we'll be announcing this weekend if you want to take it, dyeing the wool and the yarn. But like holiday, New Year, it's got just a glimmer of glitter to it. It's not sparkly by any means. It's just a glimmer. But I went out there and she had a beautiful place with a beautiful she shed in the backyard with all her work out there and the heat pumping in, water coming in. I mean, it was just a beautiful setup. It was really, really nice. Nice drive out there. Not gonna lie. Love to hear my name to you, Caprice. I love your name. So that works out for both of us. Love the color of your top. Well, thank you so much for saying so. I have this thing going with buying all these sweaters in numbers. I've been buying them to cut up, and I've got a load of blues right now. So I separated them because I didn't want to give anybody too many blues. But out of the sweaters that I've been buying like rampantly, I haven't been looking at them close up. And I noticed a couple of them even have put on 35 pounds, lately, fit. And this is one of them. So for what I paid for it, I'm keeping it. And until I detect a hole, which I have yet to see, I mean, I had it on all day today. Nobody said you have huge moth holes in your sweater. Super comfortable cashmere sweater. As soon as I get tired of it, I'll cut it up and I'll hook with it. But for now, it's on my body. And thank you for the compliment. It's a beautiful color and it's so soft. Hi, Kira. Happy Friday, everybody. I have so many things to tell you. I'm just so excited all the time. So one of the things that I want to tell, thanks, Karen. And what's funny, Karen, is like, so this one I dug out, and there's another one that's maroon that I dug out that I wore yesterday. The armpits are a little tight, but I figure I will lose weight eventually, right? You have to believe that it will happen. But there was a third sweater that I thought was wonderful, and I had it out in the separate pile. And then while I was in my crazy like rabies mode of like cut, pull, cut, move, pile, I cut it. And as soon as I cut it, I was like, oh my God, this is like this beautiful peacock color. And I move faster than my brain moves sometimes. My hands move faster than the brain. So there's got to be like a hand and heart thing with the heart, but maybe like the hand with like a bolt of lightning running through it, maybe is more my symbol. Anyway, at least this one is here. So a lot of exciting things happened this weekend. Hey, Marie, there you are. I haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Some exciting things happened. I've been on this Molly Nitobe kick, and it's like so powerful. It's just, I feel so driven. I love her work so much, and us being from the same hometown, I feel so connected to her. I feel sure that somewhere in my childhood, I rubbed shoulders with her at some point. I have such like a strong feeling for getting this book done on her. And, I've been putting out all kinds of probes. Heather, thank you for the idea about the local groups, because I belong to all the preservation and historical societies in that town. But it made me think about getting onto Facebook and joining different groups. It wasn't a Facebook group. I joined a group that's like a local group to Barrington. And the only reason I knew that it existed was because so many of my friends are still in Barrington. And for those of you who know Rhode Islanders hardly ever leave Rhode Island. So I'm lucky that many of my friends have not left Rhode Island. They are still great contacts and my dear and closest friends. But through one of these forums, I left my email and I got an amazing response yesterday. I want to share with you before we move on too much. I took a gallery shot of this email. I'm following up on the Molly stuff, and I will update you as we go. But you are about to see a world premiere Molly Nitobe rug that is not in any book. It is not in any rug hooking book. It has never been in the Shelburne Museum. This is where you're going to see it first. World premiere, bedroom wall, 1964, and now here. This is it. So this woman wrote me, and she was so nice. We were writing back and forth all day yesterday, and I'm just keeping track of this too, just in case boobs come on and start doing boob stuff. So she writes me yesterday, and a little bit of a preface, and she says, I have a Mrs. Toby rug. And we were joking about this because she says, I refer to her as Molly, but she refers to her as Mrs. Toby. Which is, I think, a sentiment a lot of people can identify with, because my friends' mothers from growing up, I still refer to them as Mrs. And for 20 years or 30 years, they've been saying, please call me Elaine. And I just say, I can't. It's just, so she has this thing with Mrs. Toby. She refers to her as Mrs. Toby. And she says, I have a Mrs. Toby rug. My family lived around the corner from her, 168 Rumstick. This is the nicest road in the town. This is like the most desirable road. And side note, now it is a super ultra rich road in Barrington, Rhode Island. Nobody lives on Rumstick. It's like crazy, crazy wealth. It's like Gilded Age wealth, right? It's like Newport, that kind of like crazy wealth. But in the 60s and 70s, it was like normal people, because her parents were academics and they were able to buy a house on Rumstick. What a thing. So she lived there between 1960 and 1974. And she said, I adored Mrs. Toby. Now, remember the story I told the other day about how she would have those summer parties where that night blooming plant would open and twitch, and it would let go this smell that was so strong it would almost knock people out. And then she would give everybody a clipping and say, whoever it blooms for first has to have the next midnight party. And they would have all these homemade cakes and drinks and stuff. And how fun that must have been. This is another story like that. She says, Mrs. Toby would invite me and my brother to her kitchen to make candied violets. Because remember, Molly also loves plants, and she went to the school for plants with this very special man. I won't remember his name off the top of my head, in New Bedford, famous like plant gardener type person. And she says, it was one of my favorite childhood memories. And when I was 3 years old, I drew a picture of a little girl with Mickey Mouse ears because I secretly wanted some. Anyway, she loved the drawing so much that she borrowed it for 6 months. And later she came back over with a hand-hooked rug with a copy of my drawing, and it was magical. And she said, I can send you a picture of my drawing. And she did send a picture of her drawing. So let me show you that. First, let me show you. And again, this is in her house, and this has never been on a display or in a museum. And I had to ask her, did you ever get the Mickey Mouse ears? And she said, no, I never did. I was obsessed with the Mickey Mouse Club, but I never got the Mickey Mouse ears because her parents were both academics and they weren't thinking along the Disney lines. They had other things to think about. But hey, Anita, there you are. I've got your stuff. It's still on the stove, but I'm getting it out to you. It's drying now. So don't worry. You're going to have your yarn super soon. And this is the thing that she drew of her. It's really herself with Mickey Mouse ears, making a suggestion, a subtle childhood hint. And this is what Molly hooked for her. World premiere. How cute is that? Kathy, 1964. I'll show you both together. I was so happy to get this because I know this just has not been out. This has been in her bedroom, and it is still in her bedroom, and it has never been anyplace else. And this is a Molly Naitobi rug. I'm super, 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 super excited to have this. Look at the shading she even put into the dress. I mean, 1964. And this is, at this point, she'd been hooking for like over 50 years. I mean, this is peak for her. She's hooking so fast and so stylistically at this point that it's crazy. And also her sister has a rug that she said is much more geometric. And so I'm going to get a picture of that rug now too. I know Christine, isn't that nice? She made the dress look like it was drawn with crayon, right, Crystal? I mean, that's an artist, isn't it? And you know what I love about Molly? One of the things I love about her is she makes rug hooking so accessible, right? With her designs, all the designs we looked at all this past week, the wagon wheels and the really offbeat florals and scrolls and stuff, they were so offbeat. And for somebody who was born in the 19th century, she could have been really old fashioned and staid and boring and traditional, but she her whole life right into her 90s was doing stuff that was so different and colorful. And I mean, I just love her style and I love her. So we'll look out. I'll wait for that next email from the sister and see what rug she shows us, because it will be another rug that nobody but us has seen so far. Speaking of crazy rugs, let's have a quick look at that eBay auction. We always run over on Friday night. So if you're waiting for your dinner or something, just know we're not going to be on time tonight. I'm not even looking at the clock. What does Karen say? What a lovely thing to do for a child. Isn't that it though? That is it. It's like things are so crazy now, and it hasn't been that long since the 60s. But can you imagine, children just disappearing next door to make candied violets? Like, has that happened in the last 50 years? It's such a different world than it was, where it would be acceptable for neighbors to have kids just be in the house and stop over for indefinite amounts of time. Just neighbors visiting each other and saying hello is a kind of an oddity these days in and of itself. But I mean, just the kindness. She had, remember, 3 boys, the 3 J's, and she didn't have girls. So, I mean, this must have been nice for her. She was so kind to this woman, and she had a sister and a brother. And Molly was so kind to all of them that she would take the time. She had a beautiful house. She had a great career. She was a successful artist, hooker, teacher, antique dealer. And she still took the time for neighbor kids to come over and make candied violets and hook them rugs as gifts for no particular occasion. It's just such a thing. That's the world that I want to write about and I want to capture in writing this book, is that world. I hate to say it, but it might be gone. And I don't want to let it go. So these stories mean so much to me. Kira says, I've been noticing a lot of hooked rugs on a website called Live Auctions. After your Blue Nose discussion, I'm on the hunt. Yep, you should always look at those. There's the Live Auction is a big one. There's Ninja Auction around Connecticut, New England. All of those auctions are very good, very hot. You can actually, you have to put in your email address, and you shouldn't have to put in any credit card information unless you're bidding. Before you bid, you do have to put credit card information in, because they have to know that your bid is good. Now, at this point in time, we are not at the moment of the country auction where you go to the beautiful old farmhouse and they give you a paper plate. My dad used to go, and he used to go like this before the auction, making sure he was all stretched with the paper plate so he was ready to spring it up at any moment. And those days are not here at this moment. And online auctions is what we got. And you can put in searches for things like hooked rug. I often put in hook rug because you tend to get more results. Not everybody or handmade rug, not everybody that is selling a rug knows that it's a hooked rug, and that is problematic. And that ties into what we're talking about tonight too. But definitely, if you have time, and you should try to make the time, go online, check all your national, local auctions. The shipping is always crazy because they want to charge you a base of at least $30 to ship a straw, a spoon, a toothpick. Just to protect themselves from losing money in shipping. But, you can get in touch directly with auction houses, find out exact shipping. You can go pick stuff up if you're local. But these hooked rugs are turning up, and it's really important to either grab them, identify them, share them with our group so we know who these makers are. I'm looking for certain ones. You're looking for different ones, different people, different ones. It's really important for us now in this crappy age of technology, the one good thing about it is we can find stuff, right? That's got to be the one good thing. So as soon as you find something interesting, please share it, because if you don't want it, if you want it, that's a different story. But if you don't want it, make sure you share it with us, because it might be the very thing that one of us is dying for. We would, for Molly Toby rug, I would walk there. I would crawl there, digging my fingernails in the pavement, dragging myself from here to the next state, across the border, to get that rug. I would do anything to get one of these rugs. So let's keep an eye on all those live auctions, because they are exciting and they are filled with rugs. Be careful of condition. It's hysterical, the remarks I get when I post the word hooker. I know it, right? That's an age-old thingy. I don't think it's ever going to go away. People will never understand. It's what we are, so we have to live with it, right? So speaking of great hooking, I'm just checking in on our McAdoo rug that's up on eBay right now. You've got another 23 hours and 44 minutes to bid on this shoe rug. Super rare, super rare. I think it is one of the patterns that Amy Oxford is selling now to make. It's one of the ones I think she already has out. But this one is done. It's $19.90. It's signed. It has one more bid since yesterday. It is currently at $230, free shipping. That's very, very good. If this has any appeal to you, or if you are a closet, no pun intended, closet shoe person, you should really go for this rug. If you're waiting for the next one to come online, that's going to be a bad move. You're going to cry yourself to sleep many, many nights. If you love shoes, you love McAdoo rugs, anything for this rug would be a steal, beyond a steal. So that was that. I showed you Molly. I showed you that. I wanted to show you some mail stuff too. I'm not looking at the time. I got this great book in the mail that we're going to look at this coming week. I found it on eBay. It had just popped up and I was a pig and I bought it. Just buy it now. And I'm going to share it though. And if anybody wants specific stuff out of it, of course, I'll send it to you. But it's called Cochineal and Insect Dyes by Frederick H. Gerber. I don't know how rare it was, but I died when I saw it, because we had been talking about natural dyes. We're going to tie this into tonight's episode too. Wild Color, Jenny Dean. This is the one I really recommended. I'll put this in the links later. I'm not going to do a lot on wild dye, but this book we will talk about this week, because it's specifically about insect dyes. These are not really great swatches. They're like machine-y swatches, but they are fabric. And this book is all about, the different insect dyes, like lac from shellac, what colors they make, and really specifically what you can do to get these colors. They're fairly limited colors from bugs, but still, we'll do something on natural dyeing this week. It made me bring out my, thing for my natural dye class and think about that. I have not been back to this project yet, but I wonder if anybody started it, doing a child's hand, cutting up sweaters and just hooking that design. You can do that easily before American Thanksgiving. I know it's a little late for Canadian Thanksgiving, but nonetheless. And, I haven't worked on this either, but I worked on it a little bit. I started yesterday. I just stretched a sweater. Some people wrote on Instagram and asked about this. I just stretched it on my frame. There's nothing special. And Carol, you said, instead of just getting regular interfacing, get the knit, the fusible knit interfacing. And I haven't done that yet. I haven't had the time. My errand today was to get that bolt of fabric, but tomorrow I'm going to go over to Joann's and get the knit iron-on interfacing one-sided. And I'm going to put it on the back just to protect it. There's no way that these loops I did on camera yesterday are coming out. But nonetheless, I want to put that on the back as a safety. I did dye this color because I thought I wanted to do the feather tree I showed you yesterday with the forest green. I just don't know. It's not very Christmassy, but I have to say, I'm still loving this Madeline Tosh neon peach. We'll see how it goes. But a few people wrote and said they're cutting the backs off their sweaters and they're hooking directly onto them and having fun doing it. So why not give that a try, right? There's no reason on earth why not to. Okay, we have a boob. I can't even think of the word spammer. That's going to really particularly irritate me. So anyway, so let's get into the subject for tonight. That was like a trigger thing right there. There's a few other pieces of mail I want to show you, but I'll have to show you maybe later. We'll see how it goes. Tomorrow, I will be coming out with a date for a dyeing class that we can do online. We will do it. It's going to be tons of supplies. I promise it will be a class. I can definitely get it in way under $200. I know dyeing classes are traditionally insane. Oh boy, thank you, whoever's doing the deleting. But this one, I got everything off Amazon. I got it in huge quantities, so I'm going to be able to offer it for a lot less. So it will be manageable. You know how I hate elitist stuff, classes, expenses, $80 hooks, $400 frames. We don't do stuff like that. This is going to be a very affordable dyeing class, and it's going to be fun. It's going to include that glitter wool, and it's going to include some skeins of the Briggs & Little yarn and some dye colors and all the bits and pieces you need. So I'm going to take one quick little breath. This dirty martini, Mom. This is the kind that you make, the super stink, stank, stunk, Grinch style, right? Remember from the Grinch, stink, stank, stunk? Really dirty martini. Really nice. So I got this magazine not that long ago. I'm going to be looking at this. This is a heavy read night. We're going to go into the 1920s, and it's so worth it because we're going to solve a mystery, right, that was outstanding for many decades. But we're going to look at two rugs that came out in the 1920s that are life changers. We should know the names of both of these rugs, like as if it was rote, as if we learned them in school, as we should have. This magazine I'm going to be referring to tonight is Antiques Magazine from, oh, good Caprice. It'll be super fun. It'll be super easy and super fun. I'm going to try, my grandson says, hands. You know what, Shelly, you're having a make a frame for you. You know, because somebody else in the Facebook group did that this week. Heather, it was you, right? Your husband made a frame for you. Homemade frames are the best. They have heart. They work great. You can buy those combs. Do you know, if you are making a handmade frame, think about contacting Dorr, D-O-R-R, right, in New Hampshire, in Newport, New Hampshire. The store, if you're near it, go. Otherwise, call them, because they sell combs that are like the, not rejects, but the ones that are leftover edges, because the combs are insanely expensive. You could spend $30, $40, $50 on the combs for your frame, never mind the wood and the time to build it. So the comb part that is often made by a brush company, like a broom brush company, that's where the expense is in making your own frame. So yeah, get his butt out the door. Buttons is going whackety stackety. If you are going to make your own frame, contact Dorr, because they sell the ends of the comb. It's like carpet strips, right? But they don't really call it that anymore for some reason. And they don't necessarily match, meaning every inch of carpet strip has a different amount of heads of needles per inch. That's how it's counted. Some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. But you know what? It doesn't matter at all. If one of your carpet strips is slightly less needles per inch than the other three, you will never know. And without a microscope, you will never see. And it will work. For me, I'm sure there are people who feel differently that are been hooking much longer than me, but I have a frame that has different ones that is homemade, and it doesn't even matter. Just getting that strip that will hold your backing is all you need. And you can get them much cheaper. It's like a fraction of the price if you get the ends from Dorr, D-O-R-R, rather than buy them new, because you will spend a fortune for them online. And if you find the person off Etsy that sells them in the Netherlands, you will spend a fortune on shipping. So check with Dorr first. So I'm looking at Antiques, June 1926, right? 1926, 3 years before the Great Depression. So there's a few things I have to say about this magazine. If you are ever browsing in a charity store, an antique store, and you find these old Antiques magazine, open them up and see if, first of all, the curious thing about these Antiques magazines from this era is that it starts on page number 361. So that tells me that this has been going since probably January. And they don't start with page 1 each month. This is just a different system than we have now. Very confusing to start in the 360s. You feel as if maybe there's part of the magazine missing, or you've been sent a portion of it. But indeed, it is the way that they did things in the 1920s. The first, it's hard to tell since it starts in the 360s, but the first 20 or so pages is advertising from antique stores, and everywhere from Wickford, Rhode Island to Bristol, England. I mean, it's everywhere. And looking at these magazines from this era of antiques, it really makes you think, okay, this is 1926, 3 years before the Depression. This would be the era of flappers, the Jazz Age. Picture what people look like then. Picture the energy then. The mint is just printing money like it's literally going out of style, and it's about to. They don't know yet that the crash is happening 3 years from now. People are buying antiques like insanely crazy. And these magazines are filled with the most beautiful, exquisite, expensive, rare stuff. It is really nice to find antiques magazines of this era. But when you do, make sure that you check about 20 pages in the table of contents. I mean, it's this, like, this is all the ads at the beginning. And then you get the table of contents on page 379. Check to see if the editor is still Homer Eaton Keyes. Homer, as in Homer Simpson. Can't believe I said that. Eaton, Eaton, Keyes, Keyes, like Star Spangled Banner. If he is the editor, maybe grab it, because I know from reading about Homer that he was absolutely, his number one love was hooked rugs. And he puts as many hooked rugs in these early editions of Antiques Magazine as he could, because it was his personal passion. He was the editor and he could do it. And when you have issues that he is the editor of, you will usually get mentions of hooked rugs, and really unusual ones too. This is an exceptional issue that I've got on my lap. I ordered it because I knew what was in it. And let me just show you a glimpse of what is in it. I'm going to show you what I'm sure is not going to be at all representative of how amazing this is. Maybe you've heard of this because Rug Hooking Magazine mentioned this years ago. I couldn't find the issue, not even online. This is the Caswell Carpet. Now, it looks like a Baltimore quilt, but it is a rug. And this is the full size of the rug. I'm going to be talking about this for a while. Note the blue, right? It's mostly browns, neutrals, but it's got quite a bit of blue. They do a close-up of it. You know, Antiques Magazine at this time was putting one color plate in each issue. And this is only an excerpt because what I just showed you was much bigger. Can you see that okay? I mean, this is, I'll show you this again. This is extraordinary. So this is this Caswell rug is the first of two rugs in this issue that we're going to talk about tonight. It's an extraordinary piece of work for the early 19th century. Now, again, that was a clip of it. The one that I showed you is just a small excerpt. This rug is not a hooked rug. This is what's called an embroidered rug. Now, remember from some of the early episodes of Coffee Time, we talked about the different categories of rugs, right? We've got hooked rugs, which will come a little bit later. Hooked rugs do not exist at this point by the name hooked rug. People are not using the technique of pulling up on a loop to make a rug. They're not doing that just yet. They're about to, but they're not doing it just yet. This is like the 1820s, 1830s. So what people are doing now, if you remember these earlier episodes, we talked about like embroidered rugs, yarn rugs. There are different styles of rugs. It's going to look a lot like a hooked rug. It's not going to have as high of a pile because they're not pulling up a loop. What is the difference between the rugs that came 10, 20 years before hooked rugs and hooked rugs? The difference is you are doing it with a needle, and a wooden needle probably, or bone. Maybe you got bone. Maybe you live in a coastal community and you got some kind of baleen or, you know, early plastic. But you're talking about using a needle with an eye versus a hook. And that is the only difference, because it is very hard to tell the difference between these rugs. Even now, obviously textile experts can, scholars can who do this, but looking at them, really tramped down hooked rug is going to look a lot like a yarn rug or an embroidered rug. And the only thing that's different is the technique. So I want to tell you about this rug, and then we're going to move on to another one. I'm going to try to paraphrase because I don't want to read directly from this magazine. It's an old magazine. And again, June 1926 Antiques, if you want a copy. I'm going to do some paraphrasing here, but this is such an interesting story, and it's going to lead into the second story that's also in this magazine that has an update, a 21st century update, which is going to be really exciting for us. But I think it's nice once in a while to showcase these very early rugs and these very early makers, because this is part of our rug making history, talking about these early rugs. And certainly the Caswell Carpet is the most famous example. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art now. It's been at a lot of museums. It's moved a lot. It's been shown in a lot of places, but it's housed at the Met. So that's where its permanent house is. So written by Mary Garish Higley in quite dated language of the 1920s. She says, beginning at the beginning, Zorua, that's the first name of the maker of the Caswell Carpet. I'm not going to say anything about that other than early American names were sometimes toughies. Zorua Higley Guernsey made a carpet 12 feet wide by 13 1/2 foot long, 12 by over 13 feet. I mean, honestly, like this, I mean, this is like obviously a feat, right? She's a young woman when she does this. She started with wool on the back of the sheep, which had been given her to supply her own spinning. So she actually is spinning it, turning it into yarn and using a needle to make this rug. She does it with her own hands, et cetera, sharing the sheep, et cetera. She works emphatically at it. Zeruah's father was a maker of spinning wheels. Now that's lucky. And machines kindred to them. So he was a bit of an inventor in the field of spinning machines, things to do with sheep. So this will help her. And he actually fashioned for her the wooden needle that she would use to do this entire carpet. This is a real labor of love, as you can imagine. So he gives her the needle. He sets her on her way. The carpet was finished. We don't know exactly how long it took her. It's not a long time. We're talking about a few years. Like we're talking about under 10 years, certainly. It was finished in 1935. Memory of what the maker said of her method recalls at least these details. She always declared that she did the work on a tambour frame. She described the figures in color as done in double Kensington stitch. She claimed for the period of making it only a very short space of 2, some say 3 years. Now we have to maybe update that when we get to the end of this article because she did sew a kind of an apron on it. And I don't know if that's included in the 2 to 3 years. But this was her own handmade work, right, on this tambour frame. The carpet is divided into squares, each square carrying a design wrought in various colors against a black ground. These designs are no two alike, absolutely original, and besides displaying a great variety of motives, right, in the 1920s, we're not saying motifs yet, we're still saying motives, strange language thing, right, indicate no small artistic skill on the part of the maker. Flowers, leaves, a rooster, butterflies, birds, cats, fruits, puppies, ferns, and a man and a woman, at least the last appear interrupted in a sort of romantic situation. And Zeruah herself prophesies that one day she would keep a house with this carpet on the floor. And she said, by the profane, again, a language thing, as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And how many times lately have we said Victorian rugs and Victorian decorating really reflect the desire of Victorians to create an Eden at home? That's where florals are coming from. That's where these big fat bouquets as motifs are coming from. The idea of creating the Garden of Eden in your home. It is a thing. Cannot be denied. Apparently, Zeruah had qualms as to the success of depicting the human face and figure. For after the carpet had been completed, she kept the lady and her swain covered with another design sewn tightly over them. So Jocelyn is dying to say hello. Say a quick hello because I want to show the lady and her swain. Go ahead, sweetie. Go ahead. Let me see if anybody's written. I'll send you the link, Lily. I definitely will. Howard, M.W. Howard Brush Company on Etsy. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Okay, good. That's going to be a good one for the combs. Let me show you the lady and her swain. You know what? I think it's close up in this color picture. So she actually disliked the lady and her swain so much when she did it. Gosh, I can't even tell if it's in focus. There we go. These two, that she covered it up. So when the rug was looked at years later, there was a second picture on top of it sewn over it, covering it because she felt it was a failure. But for whatever reason, she didn't cut it out and replace it because these are all separately sewn, right? She didn't cut it out and replace it. Maybe superstition, but she was not married yet. Who knows why she didn't, but she didn't. She left it there. She just hid it under another design, which I think is so interesting. Thanks, Lily. She's got to say hi. She's got to come and pop her face into the scene. So the colors used through the carpet are hand dyed, derived from whatever source she could find. So they're talking about her ingenuity. She had secret sort of dyes for black, brown, blue, pink, yellow, green, white, red. Coloring is varied. And again, that brings us back to this, right? The home dyes. We'll get into this again. It's not a good time of year to be planting or anything like that, obviously, but we can start getting our acts together and think about if we want to plant anything for next year as far as home dyes and think about doing stuff like this. If Zeruah could do it, we could do it, right? So Zeruah changed her name when she married in 1846. She went from being a Guernsey to being a Caswell. She continued to live in her hometown of Castleton. This is Vermont, where she achieved a ripe old age. It didn't say in this magazine, but I found her online. I found that her life The year that she died, she was 90 years old, which is interesting because I remember, I did a lot of history reading when I was a tour guide, and people always used to be so surprised when people, in the 19th century and earlier had long lives. And there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have a long life, even then, if you weren't sort of befallen by a terrible disease that they didn't know what it was, or attacked, or there was a war and you had to fight. If it weren't for those things, people obviously had similar lives to what we would have now, particularly in New England, where there were so many farms, good nutrition, lots of good things to eat. People could live to be good old ages. There's no reason why they shouldn't. So the carpet she kept on the floor. When she married, she took the carpet with her and she kept it on the floor in a seldom used room. So she kept it in the parlor. But it mentions in this article that with the slightest amount of urging, she would allow callers to invade and to come into that parlor and admire and see the handiwork that she'd done. I certainly hope so, right? I certainly hope so after this much work, that callers are allowed to come see the handiwork that she's done. Well, I'll have to check later. You guys are having a good conversation about something, huh? Good. Grippers. It's a grippers conversation. So there were other things about this that were interesting. She says one of the cute things that Zalua says herself is that it gave her particular pleasure to tell the story to her visitors of how the family cat, walking one day around the parlor, came upon the embroidered blue feline of baleful mien. So this is the cat that she hooked into the rug, or that she sewed into the rug. And she said that the real life cat glared so steadfastly at one of the lower rectangles, and it would give him pause, and he would actually spit at the carpet, because this is the cat. It's not in blue, but you remember from the first picture, this is a square, right, from the 1820s, 1830s. You have that book too? Is it this book? I'll have to look back and see. Oh, Liz says, so interesting, as that must be where the Caswell quilt pattern came from. I don't even know the Caswell quilt pattern. I've seen single squares online for sale. But yeah, I mean, no, that's not it. That's the next rug. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of squares. And remember, there's going to be more because the courting couple was covered up. So that makes 2 instead of 1. Yeah, I'll give you the information again at the end if you want to read this whole article. It is really, this whole magazine is interesting, but this article is spectacular. And one of the other things that's interesting about it, besides the cat hissing at the likeness of the cat on the carpet, which is so, whether it's true or not, let's just assume it's true. This is a very stupid cat. We have to assume if it is true, but it's a very cute story, and it's Zalua's own story. So it also says in certain dwellings, now this is interesting historically for us in terms of carpets. In certain dwellings of earlier days, fireplaces seem to have constituted a summer problem. Their yawning emptiness offended, and it was countered occasionally by stuffing foliage or dried grasses, occasionally by the seal of a fireboard. In other words, the fireplace in the summer, when there would be no fire going, would be this big hole that was ugly, and people would often fill it with flowers to make the house smell better, or a fireboard. We've talked about fireboards a little bit, but Zalua solved this problem in a very different way. It must be, of course, eliminated, blah, blah, blah. Zalua Guernsey met the situation insofar as her parlor hearth was concerned by equipping her carpet, this is a carpet we're talking about, with a detachable apron, lightly stitched in place, and hence readily removable in winter when sparks might be flying, and almost readily blah, blah, blah. In other words, part of this carpet could come apart, right? She had this giant carpet that filled the floor, but it doesn't say where, but part of it came off. It was just lightly stitched, like basted. And in the winter, when she wouldn't want all of this work to be at the mercy of sparks coming out of the fireplace, she would just cut it, unstitch it, leave the rest of the rug where it was, take that apron part away, and then sew it back on again in the summer when there would not be any more fires. So this is a really interesting solution to the problem of large rugs, right? In small spaces. Just interesting. Everything about this rug is interesting. And again, this is a famous rug. It's not, this is not the only place you can read about the Caswell rug. You can read about it in lots of places. It was just the first time that I'd heard of the Caswell rug. And I thought it was extraordinary, her making this rug in so short a time, the blue cat that spits at its own image, the courting couple that was covered up, and this sewn on apron. It's all I think, so interesting for this period, 1820s, 1830s. Just to give you a sort of benchmark, Jane Austen, who the image of the courting couple looks a lot like a Jane Austen type character. Jane Austen dies in 1817, so just like 5 years earlier. But of course, she dies very young. So this is that sort of period, that sort of Napoleonic style period, and in the United States too. Where does the rug live now? It lives at the Met, at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and it was touring often until recently. From what I saw on the internet, it was moving from museum to museum often. And now it's at the Met for the time being. But when life returns to normal, it might be on the move again. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But there's a lot of information about the Caswell carpet, and you'll find a lot of it on the Met website. So later in the same issue of Antiques magazine, let me take a little break. This is where it gets really exciting, because Homer is editing this issue. He's got 2 features on rugs in it because he personally loves rugs, and he had that much power just as the editor to talk about rugs endlessly in Antiques magazine in the 1920s. So good. So there's another feature by the editor, and it's a note on embroidered carpets. And he recaps a lot of what has been said about the Caswell carpet. And he goes on to talk about the industrial needle, even by somebody like Zorula in a very remote northern Vermont town, how she achieved this level of beauty in her father's parlor and then her own parlor. He waxes very sort of poetical about this, and he says, no doubt she was driven to use her own ingenuity and design and her own patient needle and manufacture, blah, 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 as women of previous centuries had done in England and Germany and France. And he names a few countries. I'm sure it was pretty much every country. Zorua invented her own designs, and these were such as we might properly expect from one who was born in 1805, who had been brought up above among the reminiscences of, they're using a lot of words that we don't use anymore, so I'm paraphrasing, of the 18th century rather than the 19th century. So we are seeing the crossover in her work, in her little vignettes of art that was much more popular in the century before. And the stylized work that's about to come, we're seeing a little bit of that in her squares, but really she is a product of the 18th century, not the 19th century, in terms of her taste and what she's seen and what is familiar to her. So he's saying how she's been dominated by the earlier period with the floral motifs and the highly stylized everything. Zariah Guernsey never once loses her feeling for sparkling pattern, but she does occasionally yield to the dictates of naturalism, which is a new movement that's coming in now. And he references the lass and the tumbling puppies and kittens and the extraordinary blue cat. He says unmistakably that the other rugs that they would have had in the house at the time would have been simple woven rag rugs. In other words, loomed rugs. So in any house, it would have been extraordinary to have a handmade carpet like this, like the one that Zorula did. And most people would have had rugs if you had any money and you could afford them, but they would have been loomed rugs. They would not have been handmade rugs. And he says probably the young woman, meaning Zorula, had never heard of a hooked rug. If she had, we may doubt that she was blah, blah, blah. Basically, in 3 paragraphs, he's saying if she had heard of a hooked rug, she would have used a hook to do it because it would have been a lot faster, a lot easier. She would have gotten her results realized a lot closer to what her vision probably was if she had been hooking and not using the wooden needle that her dad made her. So that's an interesting note because hooked rugs are about to come in, but she's right before. The hooked rug was, however, presently to appear in answer to the demands of womenfolk who wished to modernize their dwellings in the same way that Zorula had, again, paraphrasing. But Zorula was not the only patient person of her generation. In 1844, Mrs. E.G. Miner of Canton, St. Lawrence County, New York, sent to the State Fair for the exhibition at the State Fair a carpet that was 16 feet square, which she had designed and embroidered with her own hands. Now, there is not a complete picture of this carpet anywhere. So I'm going to show you pieces, but not yet. You have to be in suspense for 1 more minute. The piece arrived too late for the intended purpose. Isn't that heartbreaking? But so much interest did it arouse that it was given a special display of its own. At the time, it was described as showing a border consisting entirely of bouquets of flowers and a central series of pictures, picture in groups. So it's going to look a lot like Cerula's. Cattle, sheep, shepherds, hunters on the trail, buffalo, moose, game birds, etc. The making of the carpet occupied the spare time of Mrs. Miner for a period of 7 to 8 years. The design she drew herself upon bagging, meaning sacking, meaning hessian or burlap, using a bit of charcoal as a medium. We've heard this before too. Doubtless she derived many of her pictorial ideas from illustrated books that were accessible to her. So certainly the library would have been serializing long books, right? You wouldn't be able to take a full-length book out. Everything was short because so many people were borrowing at that time. Anything in the library would have been a great reference for her. The wools for Mrs. Miner's embroidery, it is said, were made from wool that she could scrap clothing. Also stockings, right? So again, with Grenfell, harking back to Grenfell and the Canadian rugs, knitted garments. So what we're doing now with sweaters, right? And basically anything that she had that was a cast off, she used for this rug. I'm going to show you some of the squares of the rug. This is not the complete rug because we do not have a picture of the complete rug. Go ahead, Ted. You want to say hi? Happy Friday, my little boy. So these are some of the squares. Now, if this reminds you of like the most over the top, I wonder how large these carpets were mounted and displayed. They would have been insanely heavy, I would think. Definitely, Kristen. These are like, they're saying like 14, 15, 16 foot. These would have been insanely heavy. I don't know the answer to that, how they would have been hung. And I'm sure that they were so handy back then. They would have handled it well. This is another thing to always sideline, look for at antique stores. When I try to research, like, for example, Waldoboro rugs in Maine, if you are ever lucky enough to find early pamphlets, sometimes they're just a piece of paper folded in half with no extra pages, from, for example, state fairs, early expositions that include hooked rugs, grab them. Because the ones that reference Waldoboro's can be worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, right? So in itself, that's a good investment. But they're also full of information that we really need to complete pictures of names and dates. This kind of thing, if there were a piece of paper still available for this exhibition, that would be extremely handy, but it seems there's not. There is. It's just nobody knows that they have it yet, and it's in an attic somewhere. Oh, thank you, Doreen. Don't forget to thumbs up. The next time you have a thought, let it go. Okay, so we might have another spammer there, but I'm going to continue talking about this rug nonetheless. So these are just details from the Miner carpet, and we're dating it 1844. So the design of the Miner carpet displays little of the 18th century influence. She's moving forward a little bit. She's still got the heavy floral motifs, right? Very, very Victorian. When you see this sort of heavy flower motif, you know we're looking at like an early 19th century rug. This really dense, because when you go a little bit further, you get the sparser. When you think of typical primitive hooked rugs, you get real sparse distribution of flowers. You don't get these dense clumps and clusters of flowers. This is a quite dated design motif. The handling of the groups of flowers and vases display the Victorian fondness for heavy mass effects. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So in 1844, the rug was completed, and it was viewed as an absolute wonder. Even though it made it there late, it had its own display, and people were blown away by the craftsmanship of this rug, the size of the rug, the skill that was put into this rug, particularly in America, because if you think about it, America is still a new country, right? In the 1770s, 1776, we became a country. In the early 1800s, we're still a new country. People are very busy building town centers, building business, building industries, building mills, not wanting to import anymore, just busy at home. People didn't have a lot of time. There was not a leisure class. For somebody to do anything like the Caswell carpet, or a few years later, this carpet, the Miner carpet, it's extraordinary. So we know from this article in 1926 that the editor of this magazine tells us that the carpet, the reason we're not seeing a whole picture of the carpet is because he says the carpet has been broken up and its parts have been distributed among members of the family. So when this article was printed in 1926, the carpet was already broken up, and it is not known where the rest of the squares are or how many squares they are. They're going to be, he's going to say in this article, he's going to say 26, right? That's an odd number, and we can assume that that's unlikely, but that's what he says in this article. In comparison to the Caswell carpet, it shows increased interest in pictorial naturalism, decreased interest in the qualities of linear design. So these squares compared to this is much more like Baltimore album, very stylized, very basic shapes. This is much more detailed, and they're within 5 years of each other, right? So they're not that far apart in geographical location or in date. It's just two very different styles. This is hanging on to the 18th century. This is going into the 19th century. It's just taste, different taste. So when this article was finished by Homer in 1926, that carpet was broken up, and nobody knew where the rest of the squares were, or indeed how many squares there were. So here comes the craziness of the internet in the 21st century. This article I happened to find, and this is just, I found this article first, and that's why I ordered that magazine. Jan Whitlock, September 8th, 2015, writes this. This is on, I don't know where the article originally came from. I found it on Antiques Magazine, but I think it was published as a blog first. Couldn't find it in that form. It's also on Antiques Magazine Facebook page, Jan Whitlock. Whitlock, Whitlock. So I'm just going to read part of this to you because, I mean, it's just amazing that this is how this happens nowadays. Discoveries come in such, this is Jan Whitlock speaking, discoveries come in such unexpected ways. You can search for years for the missing piece of your puzzle without any success, and then sometimes it falls on your lap. This is what happened last year when my friend, Tom Jewett of Jewett Burden Antiques, posted pictures of his Christmas decorations on Facebook. Tom and Butch Burden go all out for Christmas at their rural home in Maine, displaying antique decorations collected over the years. Last year, they posted a picture of an embroidered panel depicting a deer, and they had placed it above their mantle with a garland, bedecked with a garland. This is the picture. So in other words, this person is friends with this guy who posts some pictures of the interior of his house and with Christmas decorations, and this picture's in it. And you know what's going to happen next. Although I had not seen it before, it looked familiar. I asked them about the size, and they measured it. It was about 25.5 by 26.5 inches. I knew I had stumbled upon one of the missing panels of Mrs. Miner's carpet. Even better, they told me they had a second panel, and it was a floral bouquet. This just chokes me up because this is like unbelievable. This is what everybody wants to happen, right? In June of 1926, and this is good, I'm going to cut some of this because we just heard this. 5 of Mrs. Miner's panels were published in the Antiques magazine that I just showed you. At that time, it was recorded that she'd made a patchwork rug, 16 feet square. And in 1844, she sent it to the New York State Fair exhibition, where, according to the magazine, it was given a display all its own. And I'm going to skip the next part about the buffalo, the moose, all that, because we just heard that, all the subjects of the squares. Mrs. Miner was born Eliza Gracia Campbell in Middlebury, Vermont. So she's from Vermont, not from St. Lawrence, New York. She's from Vermont in 1805, and she married Ebenezer Miner in 1829 in Canton, New York. She was about 30 years old when she started embroidering her rug. In an 1880 census, as a widow, she listed her occupation in 1880 as an artist because of this rug. She'd been working on it, and she considered herself rightfully an artist. At the time of the article in 1926, the carpet had been broken up, which I just read to you from that exact article, and given to the different members of the Miner family. So 5 of the blocks that we saw illustrated in that magazine were the known blocks. The remaining panels were unknown, and nobody knew where they were. They had been lost. Jan says, while researching my book, American Sewn Rugs 5. Now, if you start researching these American sewn rugs, they are very rare and they are very expensive. I've been finding occasionally some copies online. They are very, very expensive. If you find one, please share it with me. I'll pay for you to make copies or whatever, but I'd love to read the content. Super expensive. We located and included a 6th panel, a fine wool embroidered image of 2 golden retrievers with trees in the foreground and a manor house in the background. And it is in the collection of the Shelburne Museum, right? And that's this. So in between that 1926 article of Antiques Magazine and now, Jan found this one and knew it was part of that rug. So this is what she found until her friends put up their Christmas decorations on Facebook, and she realized that she found 2 more. I'm going to skip this part. She says there's some discrepancy in the number of blocks in the complete rug, okay, because it's unknown. But she says in the 1926 issue, they said there were, 64 panels. Okay, so that can't be. And she says, however, the Folk Arts Center exhibition paperwork states that there were 24 original blocks. That would make more sense because of the way they would have been divided, in terms of numbers. 3 of the 15 blocks shown appear to be the 5 illustrated in 1926. So anyway, this article, it ends soon after, and she just talks about what an extraordinary find it was and how strange life is, that you could be reading this magazine and you could be aware of the minor carpet, but and aware that the carpet was broken up, and it is truly and literally unknown how many squares there actually are. We're just speculating. And then she finds one over the course of her career of the 2 retrievers in front of the manor house. And then her friends post the Facebook picture and she finds 2 more. So that, I thought that article was just so interesting. And that happened to be tagged on the end of the Caswell Carpet article in here. So 2 interesting articles about early 19th century carpets in this issue of Antiques magazine. We are late indeed. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'll show this to you one more time. Antiques, June 1926. You know what? If you have Antiques magazines or any magazines that reference old carpets like this that are considered important, definitely send me an email and let me know. I would definitely want to know. A little more research turned up this newer article about how 2 more squares were found, through this Facebook thing. So you just never know the beginning, the middle, the end of these mysteries. So many things are still unknown. And with social media being what it is, the good and the bad, as we know from our thread, it's amazing what people can turn up just looking at other people's posts and sharing information. So I think that is it for tonight. I think I've had I've only had 2 drinks so far. I haven't been completely outrageous and shameful, but I hope that was interesting for you. I've been reading a good part of the day about the Caswell carpet and the minor carpet, and it just made me think there's so much work yet to do. I mean, really, when we're looking at the history of rugs, we have so many beautiful rug books, right? Schiffer puts out tons, Rug Cooking Magazine publisher puts out tons. We have so many great histories of magazines, but the more we look, the more we find. And the thing is, especially last week with looking at Fine Artists Who Hook, and then this week looking at Molly, and then looking at even earlier, the Caswell carpet and the minor carpet, it just makes me think there is so much out there that is connected. We really need to connect it. It's such a good time to do it while life is so quiet right now too, right? Oh, I hope it was interesting and inspirational. Yeah, it just, when you see work like this that people did at this time with a wooden needle, it makes me feel like a bit of a slacker, to be honest. But it gives me this sense of urgency, pressure, stress, panic, that these things are out there. I don't care who gets them. I just want them to be documented and recorded so that we know the beginning, the middle, end of as many stories, as many people's stories as we can. Because, for Mrs. Minor, as a widow in her old age, she describes her occupation as being an artist because of this one rug that she made in her life. I wonder if any of you have ever read the short story. Now, who was it? Sara Orne Jewett, right? I think she's also a Vermont author. She has a lot of short stories, and I think this one was called The Quilt. I didn't think of it before this episode, or I would have gotten it, but I think it's called The Quilt. And it's all about this. It's a short story about this woman, like a spinster, who does this beautiful quilt, and it's chosen to hang in like the state fair. And it's about the day that she gets dressed up and goes to the state fair to see it. And it is like the peak and the highlight of her life, of her whole life, going to, because other people are looking at the same time and appreciating it. And it's just these moments in life when people do these extraordinary pieces of work that many generations later we should still be looking at and going, are you kidding me? Like, this is someone's life work. It's just amazing. I think it's so special. But this led me to the minor rug, and I will keep searching for more information on the internet. Choked myself up. On the minor rug too. And you look for it too. Look for Caswell, look for minor, see what else we can find out about these rugs, because they are super historic and important. And they tie into what we do now. They're exactly the same thing that we do now. So I think, super interesting. I will see you next week. I think next week next Friday, we're doing our bingo night, and we're going to be doing the Molly and I Toby 50 States rugs, the States rugs. So that's going to be a great episode. I'm going to get that ready in plenty of time. So that's really good. Last time we had, I think, 9 different cards, and it made, out of all the people who played, it gave us, I think, 4 winners to each one like $35, which was a good amount. And now everybody's made their purchases. Susan, I'm getting your white wool out. So let's do that again next Friday. I'll get set up for that. On Wednesday, I plan to have an interactive Zoom. So I will tell you on Monday and Tuesday how people on YouTube who are not on my Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, if you're not on my Facebook group, please send me an email to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com and let me know that you want to be interactive with me on that Zoom. All of us will be able to see each other on Wednesday, talking, chatting, asking questions, telling stories. We'll probably stay on for an hour and it will be interactive. And I might even take the back seat if you all are talking. That would be nice for me. But let's do that on Wednesday. And if you want to participate, please send me an email at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com, because I do not want boobs who write to us in this thread and say crazy stuff to log on and do like a raincoat special, that kind of thing, which could happen. Everybody's got to have a hobby, right? Have a great weekend, everybody. Next week, let's do some promo gown. We'll get ready. We're going to do a heavy promo gown week next week. Look at some more projects. I'll try to get some work done over the weekend. I'll show you the new things and the new classes that I'm announcing for early to middle December. And we'll get ready for our bingo next week. I'll start selling cards probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll keep you updated. Have a wonderful weekend. Be busy, be happy, enjoy the weather. I hope it's great. Don't put too much pressure on yourselves. Have fun. Do some research. I'll see you soon.